So we'll see. And we're live. All right,
Yep,
sweet.
we are live. All right, so welcome to the Product Angle Show. And on today's episode, I have Nikhil Vimal. How are you,
there.
Nikhil?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for coming. I'm excited to learn more about chatbots.
Yeah, I'm excited to share more. I mean, but it'll be more than that. But just to set up, that'll be sort of like I'll expand on that. It'll be exciting.
Definitely. So, tell us who you are and what you do first.
Sure. So my name is Nikhil Vimal. I have been in the world of tech, startups, development, open source for roughly coming up on 8 years now, which is actually really crazy. Yeah. Almost like 7-8 years. So I have been, I started out as a front-end web developer. That's what I am by trade. And eventually sort of transitioned in the world of becoming a founder, becoming a head of product. And, currently I'm a consulting partner and product operations head at a consultancy called Chat Mode. And we focus on workforce automation with Microsoft Teams and potentially other platforms too. But right now, just focusing on helping integrate chatbots into some of the world's largest or rather the world's coolest mid-market companies, I should say, specifically is what we're targeting. But also we've all worked as a team on other awesome projects as well. So yeah, looking forward to sharing a little bit about what I'm doing there.
Excellent. So before we get started, I always I've been asking this question to all the guests. Tell us something that we cannot Google about you, because it's
a good question. I used to, like, a long time ago, maybe even before I was really getting into like web development, specifically in the open source community, I actually was really active in the gaming community out there. Like I would say the early days of like all the like tribes and communities and what would now become more like grassroots esports.
Yeah.
But I used to, somewhere on the internet, there's videos of me actually interviewing micro influencers in that community. And I used to do that. I used to do like a lot of that. Like I was really into the concept of like where gaming can go as a bigger concept, as a bigger application. So none of that, and that was way before like esports was really a conversation yet. So it was more about like this world of scrims and stuff like that. But yeah, there was a time, and actually I was never a YouTube like sort of influencer myself. I never sought out to be that. I sought out more to figure out what that industry looks like and see what opportunities there were. But then I actually transitioned to web development in the world of technology. So cool to see coming back though. Esports is still on my like high list of stuff that I follow, but yeah, that's something that you probably can't find with like an hour or two of Googling. It's pretty deep out there.
Interesting. So what was your favorite game back in the day? Not the recent games. I'm talking maybe the 90s, the 2000s, back then kind of games.
Oh man, I think for the longest time I've been following like Super Smash Brothers, which is a very random answer, but I'm a huge, and it's actually a very niche community of people who play for money and the competitive style there, but it is extremely unique, and I think it's extremely awesome that there's so many people that still support it. Every year or so they come together with this really cool like major competitions on Twitch and stuff like that. I think in general, Nintendo's never been very good at like trying out these competitive sort of circuits, but like I know even for like Pokemon cards, they've had like major competitions and stuff that I followed before. But yeah, interestingly enough, Super Smash Brothers, like ever since Melee, I guess I've been trying to follow that world of like competitive circuits. So yeah, that's the one. But I also I follow a lot of Counter-Strike as well. That's another cool one I would say.
That's cool. It's actually funny. I was having this conversation with somebody else a couple of days ago. Whereas in the US, if I ask somebody what kind of favorite game they had back in the 90s or the 2000s, a lot of people would say something to do related to Mario or something along those Nintendo kind of lines. Whereas in Europe, since I grew up in Europe, it was Sega. I don't know if you remember. Sega,
of course,
was very popular back then. And I think at that time it was more popular than Nintendo, at least in London area. So I grew up, I knew of Mario and all that kind of stuff, but I grew up with Sonic. So Sonic was one of my favorite old-time games back in the day.
That's crazy. I used to do like the Sonic speedruns and stuff. That used to be like, I would say, a childhood activity of mine. But like I was definitely more of a Nintendo fan, but Sega like it still slipped into the mainstream here in the States, I would say, too, at least at some capacity. So it's really fun for sure. Fun like nostalgia trip there.
Yeah, definitely. So before we get into the product side of things, I researched your LinkedIn, and there's about 3 or 4 different companies that you started as a founder. So you know, it's going to be a bit of a two-part question. Talk us through, you know, firstly, the companies that you started, but also as a founder, I think you would have learned a lot about the product and hustling and doing things. So, you know, what companies have you started? What were they about? But also keeping back in the back of your mind, what influences has that experience impacted you today in the product world?
Ooh, that's like a super awesome question. I'm so excited to share about that. So yeah, I've started, I guess like the very first company I've ever started was an agency. I had like, it was me and a few friends who were doing web development stuff. And like I said, mostly front end, but I was doing a lot in the open source community at that point. So not really like a startup in the traditional sense, but it was like an endeavor, you know, at really the very start. So that's sort of like the first company I've ever independently, you know, gotten up and running. You know, then to share, like, I'm going to go back and forth a little bit, but to, you know, share the other two companies. I had one company that was just a simple, like a local discovery app that I tried out before, got in front of like investors, got in front of a lot of people, didn't go anywhere, unfortunately. And I think at that time, like, I wasn't really, it was an interesting experience because I ran it for a good number of like, gosh, it was like a year and a half, maybe more. That was like I independently worked on it, built it out, and ended up just kind of like losing a lot of like, it was sort of one of those, unfortunately, like a slow burn product where there just wasn't enough there was never enough traction to really keep like, it kept kind of pivoting, right? So then it became an event startup, which did have some cool traction as well. But yeah, it was, you know, I had like it was a really cool experience of getting like a lot of people interested in the beginning, but then having, unfortunately, a very slow like fizzle out process, right? So you know, that happens, you know, fairly frequently with a lot of early startups, I would say. So you know, had like sort of that as well. Then, you know, had the really the coolest, still to this day, the coolest like tech startup based experience I've ever had in my life was a friend of mine and I started a startup in the world of hospitality and artificial intelligence, which was definitely around chatbots, virtual assistants. We were part of the Capital Factory Accelerator back in, I guess this would be the summer of 2017. Down in Austin, Texas. So really, really great people, really great community there. Got to chat with a lot of mentors and got to meet with a lot of, you know, there's actually a big hospitality community in Texas in particular. I would say like Marriott has like major offices there, and a lot of the other big firms have, you know, or like just there's a lot of different cool pockets there. So yeah, we got to work with some really big brands. We got to, you know, do a lot of basically integrations into hotels to help them manage their customer service relations with the you know, back office stuff, all through voice and you know, chatbot technology. So this was a project that was about a couple of years that we worked on it. You know, we did have our moderate success, we did have our moderate breakout, but you know, as startups go, there's always different reasons that it just doesn't end up working out. And unfortunately, it was one of those things where after a while, the traction we were getting, the experience we were having was just not really aligning with a direction moving forward. And we decided, and honestly, the world of hospitality definitely maybe wasn't the right timing, maybe it was something, but it just didn't really feel like it was a startup that was moving in a direction that really had a really bright future. So we did end up shutting it down after a little bit, and it was cool. We had a few people on our team. We had a really cool experience going through it, but you know, just a mutual decision as founders to take a step back and focus on other things. So, you know, that's been sort of my startup experience. So, you know, I can't say that I've had any crazy exits or acquisitions or anything like that, but I've had really awesome experiences, you know, building products and having it dictate, you know, if I can go into it then like here at this point, unless you have anything else you want to add there. No, you're good. Yeah. Okay, sweet. Yeah. So basically, I think the biggest thing that you learn, obviously from failures, there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of like, in general, just, you know, sales became like, product marketing became probably the biggest thing that I learned by failing, actually, was because I've always been a very build oriented person, right? I've always been like, let's get down to business. Let's like build out the team. Let's build a product. Let's deploy it. And then you forget about the crazy 6-month procurement process that comes with, you know, signing on major hospitality companies or whatever to be users of a platform, right? So, and also just in general, the marketing and the type of like communities and networks we had to hit, we didn't hit as early as we wanted to as a team, simply because we were all very development oriented people. So the balance of, you know, product like development, product design, all that kind of stuff, and product marketing as a whole was definitely my one of like the biggest manifestations and realizations that I had at that point, which is still like really, really relevant to everything I'm doing today, right? Is how do you build, if it's a little more public facing, how do you build a community around your product? If it's a little more like internal enterprise focused, how are you, connecting the dots for the people that you're working with, and how are you getting into, there are conferences out there that are specifically for hospitality and technology, right? So being able to go to those places and representing, what it means to, sell your product and stand out from the crowd of competitors is, it's like essential in the key of starting a business at all and being a founder of a startup, but it's also just as important when it comes down to how you're thinking about product expansion, getting feedback and reusing it. So there's, I think like, so yeah, so to put it all together, my startup experience and my like experience of running my own companies essentially primed me for getting out of my comfort zone as a more developer who's focused on marketing into more of a business person who happens to know how to develop cool products and how to do marketing, sales, and all that kind of stuff, which in the end manifested into, product management, right? I think that's like, or like more specifically I've been a head of product and a product lead for a few companies now, and I've done it independently as a consultant as well for different companies. And with each one of those things, it's like that startup discipline never goes away, right? That idea that you're like, you have to be pretty hungry, you have to be, out there wearing a lot of hats, and like it really product is bringing all of that together. And like I can dig a little bit more in other parts of how it relates to chatbots too when we get to that point. But to stop it there, like that's up until this point, that's what sort of my startup experiences led me to.
No, that's super exciting. I mean, you say you didn't have an exit or whatever. To be honest, people who start something, people who learn something, I have a lot of respect for them, because, starting something from scratch, having nothing there and building it up to something, it's for me, it's amazing. And I have, a lot of respect for entrepreneurs, founders who do this, because it's damn hard. And
it's really damn hard.
Especially if you're a full-time employee, you're potentially giving up that salary, that health benefits, and all the other benefits that come as an employee to go out and do something yourself. Full kudos to that. And along the way, whether you make it, whether you sell it, whether you start something different, there's so many different learnings. And I think that's the important key part that you take out as you go from one company to another, to found another company, whatever it is. You take the learnings with you, and in my opinion, that's very valuable.
Yeah, and I'll say that without the, like, particularly the startup experience I had with the company, I should name drop it, Bmatic, which was the hospitality and AI company. Okay. I wouldn't be in product management. It's completely honest, because I was right before that. I was pretty much at a juncture where I'm like, I had this app that I personally built, and I'm like, gosh, I could really take those skills and just work for a company, right? I could do app development, I could do web development, all this like front end stuff was certainly in demand. But I ended up sort of tossing that all aside to jump into sort of uncharted territory, do a little bit more with chatbots, do a little bit more in the world of conversational AI, which I'd stumbled upon by accident actually through the open source community, because there were a lot of cool things going on there. But it just got me excited, right? Because you could work on innovative stuff and could get paid for it, right? But you could also change the world, right? Like it's very cliche, but that was like the coolest thing, right? Is that we could be, in every hotel in the world potentially, and there are all these really cool motivators and ideas behind leaving what's comfortable and actually having something that's like, cutting edge and being the boss, being your own boss, doing that, right? So yeah, it's a really great experience, but glad where it's got me now too.
Definitely. Now, as a front end developer, how easy, hard was it to go from your mentality of build, develop code, to that product marketing, sales, that more get out there and talk to people? Because I'm guilty of this at times as well. For me, it's easier to open the laptop and build something. It could be changes to your website, VS Code, some kind of open your laptop and do something, as opposed to get out there and talk to people. Talk us through that experience of, did you find it kind of like natural to you? Was it difficult in the beginning? Just talk us through that experience.
Ooh, so by far the best decision I've ever made in my entire career was at the sort of earliest time of learning to become a web developer and getting very involved in like open source communities, as I've mentioned, was that I actually got very involved in like the community parts of that, right? I volunteered at conferences. In particular, I'm going to give a shout out to the WordPress community because that was sort of where I got my start. That was a really cool time of like, I got to speak at many, many different WordCamps. That's like the official conferences as a developer, but I was able to, it was sort of, you're pitching yourself, right? It was really, really good practice. So I was never necessarily the introverted developer type that like is really sort of the stereotype. I was always trying to find more ways to actually be able to like teach it or, apply publicly like what being a front-end developer in WordPress and like the world of, web development looked like, right? So that was a huge help later on too. I mean, it definitely helped in startups. It definitely helped in sort of getting more into, the world of tech and doing like an independent agency and all that. But I would say that like that drive to, get a little bit out of your comfort zone and actually share what you're doing was like, it was a great setup to start off with. And I've seen a lot of really amazing developers, right? Who like, they've gone on and written to like write books and stuff, right? They start literally, you never heard of them. And suddenly they've started the biggest like online training school and conference circuit just from like taking a step out of that zone, right? And those people are fantastic product marketers, by the way, and they can be great product managers too, right? They'll build the best damn technical teams out there. But I think to expand a little bit more into what was specifically from the world of startups, it was like, to be completely honest, it was how brutal the startup world is, right? And the startup lifestyle is that trained me to really go back and say like, as much as I would really love to just build, I'm going to be staying up till 3 a.m. every night, cold emailing, answering phone calls internationally, doing something really, really crazy. And that discipline is more valuable than anything else, right? And I hate to say it, like, I know there's people out there who are preaching like starting it's not like a lean startup, but it's like the lean lifestyle, right? Where you only work like 4 hours a day on your startup and stuff. I don't know if I agree with that yet, right? I think there really is a lot of sacrifice that you have to make to be able to learn and to be able to excel in like some really cool parts of what you're doing that could lead you to become a better salesperson, a better team leader, a better, just like going down the list of like where you as a founder could, continue to be very aware of everything that's going on in your company and also be able to at least speak a language, right? Like if you're a non-technical co-founder, which I've worked with, people like that before, certainly I push them to like take like, they don't need to look at the code, but they need to see the errors, right? That's what I've always like worked to show is like, here's where things are going wrong and here's where things could go wrong. And we have to sell, software or we have to sell something that will, essentially like we have to account for a lot of different things. We can't just pretend we're selling something that works all the time. Like there are security concerns. There's different, there's different things that clients are going to ask for. And overall, that has become very like I said, it's grueling. It's a lot of work. It's grueling. It comes with a lot of disappointment, but it disciplines you and trains you for, that like, I don't know what to call it, but like that jujitsu of like being able to get on the mat and do like the hard stuff rather than just watching from the sidelines. Right. So that's what I would describe as definitely sort of the core of like the sequence of experience that it's got me really into product, like as deep as I am now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, 4 hours a week sounds good, but practically, if you have an established business with people, or, contractors or whatever, potentially, but in the beginning, I think it's very difficult to build something 4 hours a week.
I don't know how it's possible. Sorry. I've read it before and I'm like,
I mean, it works
not even 4 hours
people.
a day, right?
Yeah, it works for some people. I mean,
sure.
For me, I feel like, I need to spend more hours building first. And once you have a level of, where you want to be, maybe you can push back a little bit and find other people to do it for you.
For sure.
But in the beginning, I think you have to be out there.
For sure.
So we're talking about chatbots today, right?
So we are.
What exactly is a chatbot? Because, one of my biggest pet peeves, you click on a link on, say, Twitter, LinkedIn, one of these social media, outlets, and you want to go read something. And you hit the website, and there's about 5-6 different pop-ups, all trying to grab your attention. And I'm like, I just want to read that article, right? So I know there's more to, it's not just the chatbot popping up. There's other things going on as well. But, what is a chatbot?
A chatbot, so I've changed my definition of this a lot of times. So here's my 2020 definition. A chatbot is the extension of the experience that you're supposed to get with a company. And that means that it's not necessarily a replacement of humans yet. It is
Okay.
a companion more than anything, and a sort of like an assistant to the people who are behind the scenes, and an assistant to the people who are coming in, fresh, right? And who are looking for ways to get support or service or something from a company, business, what have you. Chatbots, in their initial days were very, I would say button pushy, like you just kind of go through the process of, clicking through a few things, entering some data, and then it gets sent off somewhere. And that still certainly works for a lot of companies, and it's still great for lead capture, for micro courses. Like there's a lot of really cool ways that chatbots still work in a very linear direction, but now have become a much bigger sort of like I think the definition needs to change as a whole, really, like within a lot of different places. But at least to me, they are now an opportunity to actually have, text-based and potentially voice-based assistants that are able to actually really, really help you excel, with whatever you're working with, right? So like if you're, I think the days of like, there's a lot of chatbots that help with customer service, but if there's actually chatbots that can actionably help you and guide you through something, with like resetting your routers, like just having more than just text popping up, there's a big future coming, right? And I think there's a lot of companies that are still working on them. Obviously, chatbots and voice, like these are a little bit of like, these are a couple different things, but essentially it's all working into like a core concept of conversational interfaces, which are the idea, like what I see the future is like, I guess it's called like ambient computing, maybe is like a good word to call it, but like the concept of like everything, of a lot of different ways to activate computing in your life, right? Which would be voice, text, and whatever. And, potentially having an assistant that could integrate with a lot of different places and help you do a lot of different things, and be more than just something that like spouts information, but actually something that helps you, activate on a task and help you like save time, like save hours in a day, right? Be it if you're like a consumer, or be it if you're a company. And I'll talk more about the workforce stuff in a minute, but I'll sort of like let you guide the questions a little bit too here.
Definitely. I mean, yeah, no, feel free to share the information, because it's something that I've used, but I'm not 100%, educated on it. To me,
Sure.
I have the very simplistic view, view right now, that like an intercom or something along those lines, where you have this little icon on the corner, you click it, and you can interact with the bot, and it gives you information. So that's I'd love to learn more, because that's what my level of understanding is right now. But before this session, I was Googling chat box and things like that, and it's so much more than that what I know it as. And what's from your perspective, what's the not, I wouldn't say the biggest use case, but what's a popular use case that you're seeing a lot of companies where they're starting to use chatbots?
I think it's definitely customer service by far. And I think everything that I was sort of like saying before is that there's a lot of like, in terms of consumer facing, there is a lot of ways to help, like that chatbots could help. But customer service comes down to be the one where there can be a lot of like really interesting experimentation in the future, and a lot of opportunity. Like I think there is a way it'll keep growing, but it is the most popular use case, and it is the one that most, like if you go out there and you're looking for, if you're a chatbot consultant today, you're probably going to end up doing something that involves some sort of like knowledge management for consumers, right? Now we have companies like Drift and Intercom, which are essentially trying to replace your customer service agents with, or it's not even really replace. Again, it's more right now. It's more of a an assistant to the supplement, right. But potentially we could see, fully autonomous. Like you can ask like really, really complex questions. It'll take it apart, and it'll try to actually, like take like maybe like take your computer screen over for a second and show you where your mouse goes, and like actually like talk through it, right? Or we could have chatbots where I've seen it before too, or like I've seen proof of concepts of this, where it's like you type in a few keywords into a chatbot and it'll generate a full report or a full website for you. Like there's interesting things in the pipeline for sure, but by far customer service has been the one that actually has the largest ROI, right? Because that is what it is at the end of the day. Now I wanna like preach something for a second, which I think is, this is a word that goes around a lot, it's even like a sort of collection of words that goes around a lot. But the concept of like a product experience is, I think, really, something that like we're getting to a time where a lot of your Shopify websites, a lot of your SaaS websites, things are starting to look the same, right? Things are starting to blend together really, really big, and like in a really big way, which is like, that's cool. I think that's fine. I think a lot of places are getting their point across, but I think as we get into more competitive landscapes, there's going to need to be differentiators, right? And artificial intelligence has always been the thing on people's minds to be able to do that, right? Processes that automate themselves, right? Which is like insane. It's insane to think about. And I know we're all worried about Terminator and everything, but personally, I'm very long on the fact that the ways that we're going to be interacting in the future, and the ways that are actually going to be like the ways a lot of just general consumers are going to interact with brands are through really, really immersive experiences from every like facet, right? So it's going to be, you're using a product, but also the customer service has to feel very elegant and natural to use, right? There's no wait, there's no, big issue with like having to move back and forth between a website and an app or whatever. It's going to be all, manifested in one way. And I think the concept that it has to be expressed with, the way that it could be expressed, is conversational AI. And I think that you're like chatbots in this case, right? But it could also be voice too, right? And I think that there's, the idea of saving people time, saving people clicks, those are consistently being tested against, what chatbots can do, or that's sort of like the main ethos of what, the future of chatbots are looking like. But it's definitely becoming a point where it's about an experience, like it's an experience. It really is. It's more than just a utility. And I think that is the way that it's going in the future. If that sort of like answers, some of your thoughts about this.
It does. I mean, I'm interested in AI, but right now I think I want to take the conversation into voice, because
sure.
It's becoming so much popular, or it has become popular. It's easy to listen to a podcast, on the go, have something in the background. It's super easy to consume now with Alexa, Google Voice, and Siri. You can just talk to it and it will do a bunch of different commands for you. Where do you see the future of voice?
Ooh, so I think I'm going to start by backtracking just a little bit to chatbots, or I'm going to bring chatbots into this too. And so I think a lot of the future relies on multimodal experiences, which is essentially the idea of your Alexa could potentially activate triggers or chatbots on your phone or on your laptop or something like that. The way this is going to be presented will be interesting. Like, I don't know if it's going to be a big company that's going to be able to do this. I think my Alexa just went off, actually. And I think the future of this is, it could be up to the start. There could be a lot of startups that will allow different ways to, different connectors to be able to funnel into like, notifications on your phone and stuff, right? Or it'll just be the big companies that'll be like, hey, you're with Google Home, you can literally activate a widget on your site, and you'll have your users be able to bounce back and forth between different experiences on their phone and what they're talking to. And that could be chatbots, right? Like that could be, it might get a little exhausting to like do certain things with your voice, but it'll be better to do it with text, right? And be able to have a conversation once it's moved from one, modality to another. So I think that's where the future of voice is lying for sure. Got to be completely honest in saying I'm not loving the particular insight on voice right now, or not specifically, I don't love the insight, but I don't love some of the predictions right now, which are saying that there's the utilities are running out a little bit, as in like people are still kind of stuck with like weather sounds, notes, reminders, and weather, or and news, I guess, too, and stuff, right?
Yeah.
That and third-party apps seem to be on a decline, because I'm not going to lie in saying that a year ago, a little more than a year ago, I'd say like January 2019, I saw some really fantastic cases for voice-based assistants that were more third-party, right? Like these were brands who are working on ways to actively engage their users to actually be able to accomplish a service, right? I've seen a veterinarian service that allows you to connect to a vet and have like a phone call, and the Alexa will send a notification back to your phone, and it'll like send a payment. It'll do all these really cool things. Haven't heard from that company in a minute. Don't even know if they still exist, right? I've seen some companies try really cool like children's entertainment multimodality experiences where they'll have like, you can download an app, but then also you'll be able to talk to it and have, information games that are like both phone and voice sort of things. I think the only company really doing any of that or even touching that is BBC now. I haven't seen anyone else really keep trying it. So it's a bit of a confusing future I consistently see conversational interface companies, so voice/chat companies that are doing stuff in infrastructure, in security, get raising money, getting funding, getting acquired, all these different things. But it's an interesting, the next steps are hinging a little bit. I think it's a little bit from what startups are thinking about, and a little bit about how user behavior goes, and also in a pretty big way where the idea of I don't know if the right word is like discoverability, but like people need to be able to find skills, right? Skills and apps for their voice products that really unify experiences in a way that it's not just, again, it's the same thing with chatbots. Like I don't want to read 5 walls of text in like these micro formats or listen to like a 5-hour like user manual, right? I would rather there be some way that it could talk me through things and be a little more interactive and have a little more of a conversational nature than just a task-based nature, right? Because that could lead to more open-ended, discussions that will in turn activate really cool experiences that third parties might, try to accomplish. So, and that could be in customer service, that could be in like entertainment, that could be in a lot of different things. But to share a little bit there, the future is uncertain in the consumer side, but I can drop some more on the like the chatbot side for sure about where I do think there's going to be a lot of potential.
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah. So it's workforce automation.
Okay.
In my opinion, the next big revolution of conversational interfaces relies in, especially in the post-COVID world, whatever that's going to look like. Because we're not even really, I think we've gone through a lot of very difficult times now, but there's still so much changes coming. Today I saw Twitter's announcing that they will let their workers work remotely if they want to forever.
Yeah.
They'll have offices available, but they're switching to that. I don't know. What are you sort of looked into that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I saw that, and I think there's a lot of CEOs having that conversation right now.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID, it was a case of we're not sure that people will work remotely. They came up with 100 different excuses.
Of course.
Now everyone's forced into working remotely. So everyone's made it work. Now, because it is working, it's starting to trigger conversations. Do we really need to spend all that money on that huge fancy office that costs a ridiculous amount of money? Or can we keep everybody remote and maybe have an on-site once a year, twice a year? So where off-sites were a thing, maybe now on-sites will become a thing. So I think it's moving in the right direction, and I hope other companies allow people to work from home. Obviously there are some companies that you cannot work from home, doctors and things like that, where you need to physically go. But where possible, I think the future of remote is looking bright. And as a result, there'll be a bunch of different apps and software, utilities to help improve that experience. So I think it's a positive thing. I could be working from New York, or I could be working from Australia. As long as I get my work done, doesn't matter where I sit. And I think that's what it comes down to. So I'm super excited about it, and I hope that others follow suit. And I'm excited to see what the innovations, out of it come out of it are.
Yeah. So, to expand on that, like at Chat Mode, where I currently am the consulting partner, we were really, really long on the fact that conversations are not just going to be between people anymore. It's going to be between chatbots as well. And this is going to be the future of how companies are really going to excel in the future of having a more remote workforce and like a brand new, more online, more plugged in workforce. And essentially, there's a lot of different tools, but the thing is that at the end of the day, I think one of the most effective ways, and even ways that we're like starting to see through some of the use cases that we've already started working on, is that there's a lot about context here, right? It's very, very hard, and it's a lot of like time loss for an employee to have to switch through a bunch of different apps to get the work that they need done, right? And if one of those apps might have collaboration, one of them might not. One of those might have certain integrations, one of those may not either. And finding a way to unify that together with context and being able to do things fast, as I think coming down to looking at what is the core of what like all these companies are going to be trying to perfect: communication, right? And like you could have all your processes and whatever, like all that aside, at the end of the day, you need a way for people to talk to each other. And if they're already talking in interfaces like Slack, Microsoft Teams, which I got to give a shout out to Microsoft for like killing it. They're at like 75 million daily active users from they were not there a few months ago. But Slack, like I love Slack, I really do, but Microsoft's really hit a nerve, right? And I mean, when you think about how many companies are in the Microsoft ecosystem too already, like it's a no-brainer, right? You want your internal tools to be pretty integrated, and even when you start moving, like if you start moving outwards, like you still want more, you want as much unification as you can. That's what like every startup is really built to do anyways, is unify and put things together. So we are on the side of, I'm in particular, I'll talk about like where my motivation is. I can't speak on my team members necessarily, but I'm looking to the future of, it's all about the word experience again and immersive. I don't want to use those like buzzwords, but I want to go back to those for a second because, employees have to, right now there's a lot of like, there's Zoom fatigue, there's happy hour fatigue, which I never thought would happen, but I've heard people that getting sick of cooking with their like coworkers, right? And there's other things that are like just not facilitating a work environment that moves people in a very like, especially with mental health. I do have to like give that out too, is that there's a lot of like really weird ways, and there's also COVID too. Like there's also a really big issue that's circling overall, but people who are trying to hunker down and work are finding themselves in a situation where they're guinea pigs, right? I've seen universities, right, which have to like jump to Zoom and Microsoft Teams or Slack on like a moment's notice to run their entire operation.
I teach at a local university, so Thursday I was teaching in the university. Tuesday I'm on Zoom.
Wow. Like, I mean, shout out to all the teachers who are actually like, trudging through this and making sure that it's a good experience. But like, wow, I cannot imagine, like on a student's side, I can't imagine what the motivators are to like be able to really sit in a Zoom call for like a 5-hour class or something. And even for degrees that require really, really like interactive experiences, like this is really tough. And like that's a whole different, education's a whole different other problem, but there's amazing companies working on finding ways to bridge communication gaps there too. But, and I think universities and like colleges will go back, and I think schools will go back to normal too. I think that it will be an in-person thing for sure. But workforces are still suffering from similar issues though, where there's a lack of motivators, a lack of encouragement from like leadership to actually really use tools and, be accountable for some of your own work if it's all like virtual. And there's a lot of potential for miscommunication and again, process loss, right? So I think that, going back to the core of it, chatbots and voice experiences potentially too, which I think, Microsoft will be working on a lot of ways to, like Cortana for business is something I'm pretty long on. I think the future relies a lot on, how we can integrate those like very conversational and communication friendly experiences right into a chatbot, a voice experience, and then bring those integrations, be it from like, different parts of the Microsoft ecosystem beyond for Microsoft Teams, for Slack Teams, like, since there really isn't any other thing, it's all external integrations, but being able to bring those in and actually, experimenting a little bit more with how they're doing more than presenting information, or they're more than just tracking tools, is going to be it's going to be one of the biggest like next waves for sure. And I think right now it's still in its infancy, and it's been like, it's not like companies haven't tried it out, but right now we're coming to the point where people are going to be like rushing to get it right, and I see a future where conversational interfaces will have to live between the people working in a retail store itself and the people back at corporate, right? Different ways to send, guidelines and whatever, especially with COVID. There's different ways that could be done through communicative, or rather conversational interfaces. There's, being able, now there'll be people who are more distributed in different time zones. So there'll need to be different ways that information is presented to different people at different times to get their day started. So, the concept of uniformity is going to change as we know it in terms of like what an internal workforce dynamic looks like. And I think the thing that might really lead the way there is the way that people are interacting with, each other and also their assistants, right? Their AI assistants that help them. Imagine just typing in, you're talking to one of your coworkers and you're like, sweet, let's do a meeting this Thursday at 3. The chatbot instantly schedules that meeting, puts it on both of your calendars, sets up the Zoom call for it. Zoom call is filtered in. If it can get context from earlier in that conversation, it'll make sure to, add in the notes what you talked about in that conversation, so you don't have to scroll up and down. If you shared a document at some point, like leading up to that scheduling, that document is now going to be, ready for you. Also like maybe it'll just pop up in the notes or something. And there'll be like a lot of different moving parts, but imagine not just the time that you can save, but imagine the productivity that you're enabling, right? Like people will be able to sort of slow down with all the mundane tasks that they have to do to live a more remote and work from home life. And now they'll be able to, sort of, oh yeah, yeah, no problem. Oh, it's just me now, right? Yeah. I guess I could jump back into it a little bit too, but yeah, I'll give it a second to come back.
Hey, sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. I wasn't sure if I should keep talking because I didn't want to make you miss any of the stuff that I was talking about. So then you could like miss question.
Drinking water and it went down the wrong pipe.
Sure. Oh man, that's absolutely the worst. Sorry about that, man.
No worries.
Yeah. So to jump back into it, yeah, the core word here that I want to like share again is like it's experience, right? It's workplace experience, it's workforce experience. It's the idea that now the way that everyone's gonna that like people could be working together in some of the largest companies in the world will be completely different. And right now, a lot of people are getting tired from doing the same tasks over and over and over again, and the same, like in-person meetings, in different in-person environments, there's definitely benefits to just being able to swivel over to somebody to, talk, to share your, like, to be like, hey, look at my like laptop screen. Here's my like quick report of something. That doesn't exist anymore, right? Those kind of like quick chats are changing as we know it, and being able to send people things and get feedback on them are going to be, definitely living in a different limbo as well. And I think that with that concept, there's a lot of opportunity for experimentation and opportunities to help just sort of bring things together and bring new light to these processes. So that's what I see as the future. I think is that there's just a huge opportunity in like the distance, and a lot of it will depend also on like what company. I mean, at the end of the day, companies have to make a decision very soon, right, about how they want to, if they want to do like half-time office, half-time not, to or I don't know. I've heard crazy ideas, right? Where like only half of the people are there on one day, so the office isn't crowded, and the other. Yeah. I mean, these will all dictate what this future is looking like, but it's going to be, it's going to be like a journey of, gathering a lot of insight, talking to a lot of people, and we're at chat mode. We're in the trenches on that, right? Like that's what I'm like working on day and night, is making sure that we're tackling these different kind of use cases and concepts that will that will help different industries and different types of companies at different sizes. Because I don't think, like I said, I think one size fits all internal chatbot solutions are long gone at this point, or at least for the time being. Turning it into a turnkey solution is going to be very different. And from a product standpoint, sorry, like I'm going on all this like
no. I'm learning a lot, so don't feel free. I'm learning a ton.
Go back to like product experience, like these, it's not as easy as like it is with consumers, in my humble opinion. I think it's going to be much harder now to be able to build some of these more thought out solutions that are for, like I said, different industries, different company sizes, and companies that are trying different experiments to get people back in the office or have only certain people in the office. And that's going to be, that's going to be time. Like I don't know what's going to be the timeline for it, but I know for people on the ground who are working on it, there's just going to be a bit of an adventure every day, talking to different size, clients and people that we're working with. So yeah, that's just some insight. And, with product management and everything, I can go into that too, but just wondering if there was something to add on or whatever.
No, definitely. I mean, workforce automation I've heard of over the years. I've never really known what it really meant and how it worked. Sure. So I guess what, we spoke about this before we started. So I'm going to put the whole session episode on my website, but I'm going to cut out pieces that I think are valuable and share them on social media at some point.
Sure.
So in you've spoken about workforce automation, but if you were to boil it down to say a 30-second or a 1 minute tops kind of intro to what workforce automation is, could you give me that 30 seconds to a minute kind of explanation so I can, cut it out and make that as a shareable item on social?
Sure. So I think oh man, I'm trying to think of like the best way to like phrase this for sure.
It's harder, right?
Yeah, you've given me pressure now because I like going on tangents. It's not because I like to waste time, but I like to expand on this. Okay, all right. So the elevator pitch is workforce automation is essentially the future of how you can better manage communication processes and productivity within a company by using different, like using basically software methodology to integrate with a resource or a tool that you're using quite actively most of the time, hopefully, and be able to potentially integrate it with a lot of the other things that manage the day-to-day, or having it sort of internally build upon itself, if that kind of makes sense too. So it's about bringing together ecosystems of resources and tools that you're using internally as a company, and it's about making sure that productivity can skyrocket for the employee who has to oversee certain responsibilities, right? So they want to be able to do things faster, they want to be able to do things better, and they want to make sure that they feel confident in what they're doing. And workplace automation is the idea of giving a medium essentially for that to be accomplished, right? And that's not just for an individual employee, but that's for teams as a whole, that's for the company as a whole. That goes through many different levels of hierarchy, but that's sort of the idea. That's the methodology version of it. I could go into software all day and how it works through different solutions there. And I think to go into specifically what I'm an expert in is that chatbots will be the medium of workplace automation, and will be potentially the catalyst that will be the least. It'll be like a low-hanging fruit, right? It'll be the least barrier to entry for a company to get into. But on the IT side, certainly we're going to see some crazy. Like I've seen, like, oh man, I got to give a shout out to a really good company I saw the other day. Oh yeah, so it's called CTO.ai. They bill it as like a shared command line in Slack. So somehow you'll be able to manage like DevOps entirely from Slack in a very collaborative effort through a conversation. I think it's pretty much like a chatbot. I think it's more functionally like an app, but I think they have like, elements of a chatbot in there too. But that's crazy to think about, right? Is that DevOps is a very, very hands-on thing. Yeah. But there might be ways to automate the ways you collaborate on DevOps, projects in a remote setting way easier through this tool. And even potentially if you're in an office, this could certainly be helpful. But for the remote era, this is going to be a game changer. And I think there's going to be a lot of other companies too that will, like if there's how about I'll make this meta for a second. What if there was a tool that would take you're a marketing director and you have like a shit ton of videos that you've got to go through and be able to find different like keywords and key points and set up little snippets, right?
Exactly.
Would not be terrible to just tell an AI or a chatbot to be like, take a look at video collection X and look for keyword Y and pick out roughly 30 seconds around this topic. And eventually it'll train itself. You can give it feedback, whatever. And eventually you'll be able to automatically publish those through Buffer or Hootsuite without even actually having to use those tools, just by typing in that. And that gives you more time to focus on maybe some other tasks that you have to do as a marketer, right? Talking to more people, getting more feedback. For startups, like I could see it's a bit of a paradigm, right? Because I don't know if startups will be able to afford this right away, but eventually when it's turned into a SaaS product or something, think of the potential there, right? Think of the possibilities that like you'll be able to wear more hats by having, an assistant kind of do the work for you. And yeah, that's like workplace/workforce automation sort of in a nutshell. And also I made sure to expand on it a little bit just to give like maybe a secondary snippet or something there for you. So
that's totally cool. I mean, I'm learning a lot. That something like that would definitely help me, because for me, after we're done, I'll download the video and then I have to go watch it again, cut out snippets, and make sure that they're clean, upload them to Twitter or LinkedIn or wherever. Yeah, and that takes time.
Yeah. And I'd even go so far, just like quickly jump in there. You just made me think of something. These virtual assistants of the future that are automating our workplaces, they're going to be accountability boosters too, right? They're going to be the ones who are going to say, hey, you uploaded a URL that went to even if you're still the one tweeting or whatever, these could be things that are going to be watching out for, certain things that might come up in public, right? Like, oh, this video, you uploaded it to Twitter, but it's only at, 480p. Like, do you want me to re-upload it as a HD video? Do you want me to delete the tweet and re-upload it? Like, there could be little things that right now might seem like, oh, that's just kind of a cool gimmick. But at some point, they're just going to become literally, you're doing your work. Yeah. This little chatbot, it talks to you, you respond to it. And like, in both Slack and Microsoft Teams, you can respond to things right in the little like sidebar that pops up, or like the notification that pops on a Mac, right? You don't even need to go into the tool, but you're here writing a blog post and doing all these different things. And meanwhile, this bot's like tapping your shoulder saying, hey, this entire paragraph is like, for some reason, it's in a different language. I don't know why you did that, but maybe you were like trying out some translation, or maybe the website has a bug or something. So these little tasks will play a role in a bigger picture. And I think that's what workplace automation is really going to enable. And like I said, what I'm long on is that it's going to be chatbots and even voice interfaces that are going to be the happy medium for more non-technical slash like people who might be technical, but they don't need to be. They're not IT, right? They don't have time to like hack up their own solutions. They need something that just kind of works and is really sort of like I said, keeping them accountable. So that's what I sort of see.
That's super interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Now, as a product manager, what are some of the lessons you've learned, since you founded your companies?
Sure. Okay. So they were kind of sprinkled in all of this, right? Yeah. I mean, I think as a product person, which I'm kind of becoming accustomed to that term, although like side thing I don't know if you saw on Twitter, but there was a great thread about like, what do we call like product people in product? I like producers actually. I think that's great. That's a really cool, I mean, maybe it isn't that relevant, but I think that's like the most badass sounding title there is. So as someone I think of myself as a multi-discipline sort of product person, right? Yeah. So I do, product design, I do product strategy, marketing, management, right? By far the coolest things I've learned, like I said, so product marketing, I've learned by way of experience and being able to go through like the grueling times of running a startup and being, I've been part of many startups as well, and headed product at different types of like, companies in different industries. So, certainly something there. I think to share something cool, like I've done a whole product management thing for the NFL before. Wow. And that has enabled me to do some really like that required building out kind of a team, right? Like it was a whole like sort of turnkey solution that needed to be built. And I can't really share like totally what it is still yet, but it's like something that maybe it'll come to fruition one day, sort of more in the limelight. But essentially, being able to hire at different budgets and being able to build teams as a product manager has been something that I've found to be very sort of like, it's important. You kind of have to delegate that at some point, but in like the early times of projects and the early stages, being able to be, sort of a product manager who can also be a bit of a talent manager initially is a bit of a differentiator, and it's something that's really good. Another thing, I've always been able to build myself as a technical product manager now, which I don't think is a bad thing. Yeah. I think in particular, we're going to see only like, I mean, digital transformation is here, right? As much as you love it or hate it as a term, there's going to be really paper heavy industries that are going to consistently move. And the truth is product management I don't think can be taught in a textbook format. Yeah. It can be taught in a lot of different ways, but it really needs to be pushing for more application worthy technical stuff. Cause I think that's where a lot of like, that is where we're going. There's no other choice now. So, the days of being someone who can't really speak some of the lingo is like, it's long gone. It will be gone very soon. So I think that being able to, not necessarily being a product manager who has to like do some like really crazy stuff and actually know how to code, but being able to speak the lingo is, I think, just as important as ever as a product person. And it does.
Ability to, when you're talking to engineers and, when you're trying to communicate timelines and, deadlines and, what's going to happen and things like that, if you have no idea what the engineer is doing, it's going to be a very difficult conversation.
Absolutely. And it's out there, right? There's a lot of product managers that are running teams that are technical and they're not really technical themselves. And it's manageable up to a point, right? Yeah. I think it's always like, I feel like some of the motto of today is like, when shit hits the fan, you get to learn like the coolest. I think it's like generally known, but for product, it's just the same. Like especially if you're coming from like the angle of being a founder and having to do product stuff as a founder, you'll learn what it means to be a product manager for real. Like it's crunch time, it's pressure, it's everything coming together. And especially if you're sort of going to be like a co-founder that becomes a head of product, if that is your, to talk to all the people out there who might be listening, who that might be their goal. At first, obviously as a founder, you wear a lot of different hats and you might do things that are not necessarily like fitting the product role exactly, but be open to that like lack of comfort zone, because as you're building up your company, the product role will change, the industry that you might be in will change. And as a product person, I think you have to be so in tune and so sort of like, plugged in at all times to be, the best head of product that you can be. And, part of that is just like, it really is, consistently going out of your comfort zone and consistently learning as well. So, that's what I would say are like there's like a few learnings in there. They're hard to put in a list because they all kind of like build on top of each other, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of value to like let me just say it this way: there's a lot of value to being under pressure and learning from that in the world of product, just as it would be in the world of HR, the world of IT, the world of being an executive straight up. Like those are sort of the things that will go far. So yeah.
Definitely. Now, what advice would you give to somebody who's thinking of a product career?
Sure.
How do they get started? What advice do you have them? Tips, tricks?
Okay. So I might coin this into a book one day. So don't take this from me, but no one in the audience take this from me. But think about what you're building as, or what you're going to be working on, or the companies you're applying for. Think about the experience that you go through to use their product from day one.
Yeah.
Even if it's just an exercise that you're using, who knows if you can, if you get lucky, maybe you could work for Facebook on your first application there. But if not, but think about the way that every step of the way that you're using Facebook, it's a little bit of a combination of thinking about UI, UX and product design type stuff, but also thinking about what kind of results that could impact, right? Use Facebook's ad manager for a moment. It's engineered in a very certain way with different features, and there's different, look out for updates, look out for when it changes. There's always I think there's a time, I don't know if there's a new redesign yet, but every so often you'll see try out the new design of this and then look at that. And just I think it's sort of weird to say, but product design and product experience are they're really good teachers in actual getting into the world of management and marketing as well. Because you're looking at things that have been tested through rigorous user feedback, rigorous market research, rigorous team building and management, all those different kinds of things, and putting yourself in the shoes of people who are building something more than just a utility that just it's there for fun. There's so much to dissect, and there's so much to learn when you really sit down and go through it. So yeah, that would be my top piece of advice. Maybe a little bit untraditional. I could talk about blogs and stuff all day, but I want everyone, I want this, I'm hoping there'll be other people who are going to share other resources too. And I hope that if people were to watch all the Product Angle episodes in a sequence, they would get, a nice list of things. But I want to give a shout out in particular to say again?
That's the goal.
That's the goal. Yeah, exactly. So I want to put rather than shouting out a specific book, I want to shout out an exercise.
Yeah.
And that exercise is think about products as an experience. Think about what goes into the product design and the mindset behind turning that design into an actual graphic UI a little bit. That's always good. And then think about how functions work with, or features work with the functions that, make the product something that could be sold and something that could be, continuously worked on, right? Think ahead. It's, for me, it's even fun to think about what a, e-commerce store could do, because there's product management involved with that too. What a store could do just to get more customers that might be I don't know, trying out a really experimental way of buying something, right? I've seen ways you can submit offers for how much you would pay for something or whatever. Those, in my opinion, require a lot of there's a lot of deliberation on the product side of building something into Shopify or into WooCommerce or whatever that, enables users to take a certain action that would be going against the grain of what you would see from a normal e-commerce site. And so, looking into things so it's also looking into unique experiences, right? And keeping your eye out for things that might surprise you, and then trying to dissect them a little bit, because thinking about what discipline is needed, what roles would be needed, would need to be involved to make that work. And then you're on your way to really thinking about product in a new light, and in what I think would be, really effective way to get into the world of product and getting into a product career. So
definitely. No, thank you so much. I mean, I'm super excited that workforce automation is a thing, and it's going to grow over the years. And I appreciate your knowledge, sharing your knowledge and what have you with us and the audience. Now we're coming up to the top of the hour. Before we leave, is there anything that you'd like to add? Before we leave.
Sure. So I was trying to think. I don't have anything particularly too cool to share. I would say follow me on Twitter at Nick Vimal. I'm going to give myself a plug only because I have a lot of really cool stuff I want to start sharing in the future. I'm working on some cool. Oh, perfect. Thank you so much.
I made it for you earlier.
Yeah. Thank you. That's great. I do. I don't like to plug myself on social media too much, but in particular, I am working on some stuff just independently. And also with Chat Mode as well, on actual resources that can help you learn more about some of the product thinking and some of the product stuff that we're doing. Just because I think it's good to give back, right? I think it's that to me is that's my open source part of me that'll never die with me, right? Is that like, I love contributing code, but I also like, in this case, I just want to contribute value and insight around the world of product and what the future could look like. And right now, in particular, I'm going to say, like, you've heard me say experience, like you could take like, it could be like a drinking game, right? Like you've heard me say it so many times now, but I will be honest in saying that I want to, like, I'm exploring that right now, right? Like, I don't know if y'all have looked into, or I don't know if people, like, I'm sure a lot of people heard of Elliot now, which is supposed to be this big competitor to Shopify, or not a competitor, but just like a new like player in the e-commerce space. So I've been like, looking into what they're up to. And then I also, I do happen to work with some esports teams that are doing some really cool thing, and esports startups that are working on some really cool things. So I'll be talking about like the intersection of that in the future for fun too, because that's my roots, right? But yeah, at the end of the day, it's all going to be like mostly chatbots, but I have some other stuff coming really soon. Like I said, both in product format, blog posts, stuff like that, that I really just hope will spark some inspiration in people to think about products in a different way and think about what it means to be a product manager, head of product designer, and all the other amazing, things that go into being a product person. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have left to share, but it's been an honor.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
All right. I'm going to end.